What's up, guys, and welcome back to the G87 BMW M2. I've driven this car before in the canyons and on track, but we're back here to revisit this car. I haven't driven one in at least a year, and I remember having mixed feelings about it compared to the prior generation F87 M2 competition and M2 CS. The owner, Aiden, mentioned that this one does not have any mods at the moment, but he spec'd this out with full carbon pack, which includes these crazy bucket seats with a little tray for your nuts. And overall, it's a nice spec, especially with the 6-speed manual. This car is powered by the S58 engine. It's the same engine found in the G80 M3. It's a 3-liter twin turbocharged inline 6, but it's detuned here because this is a 2024, not the new 2025, which gets the full fat M3 tune. This makes 453 horsepower. The base M3 and 2025 M2 make 473 horsepower. Torque is a very healthy 406 pound-feet. Now this car is very heavy, 3,800 pounds for an M2. That just doesn't sound right, does it? The last M2 was in the 3,400 to 3,500 range. This is now as heavy as a 20-year-old E39 M5. This also gets an active rear limited slip differential that is software controlled, and using the M traction control system, which is 10 stages of adjustment, you can get this car to slide around super easily and with a high degree of safety. Now the interior, you either love it or you hate it. In my opinion, it's built very well. I love the choice of materials, very nice touch points. Leather wrapped steering wheel with carbon fiber all over the dash as well, and in the center console. Excellent stitched leather on the doors. Everything feels high quality, but it's not visually appealing to me. I don't like the stuck-on widescreen tablet look of the completely digital gauges as well as the infotainment. These bucket seats actually more comfortable than they look. You can get the seats really nice and low. There's good lumbar support, very snug, and holds me in just right without being overly intrusive. In terms of drive modes, this car has so many different things to choose from. There's programmable M1 and M2 buttons on the steering wheel. Engine, we're gonna go Sport Plus for the most sensitivity. Gear shift assistant off. Chassis, which is the suspension, we're gonna go Sport. Steering will go Sport, and brake will actually leave in Comfort, because in Sport, I find the brake pedal to be just way too touchy. Now, Aiden also mentioned that he disabled the active sound control, so all we're getting now should be just pure induction and exhaust sound. Wow. I just got out of a Lexus GSF, and even though this is rated for slightly less horsepower, it's so much quicker in a straight line because, well, first of all, BMW engines are notoriously underrated, but also the mid-range torque of this engine is something to behold. There is some turbo lag down low, but once you're in the mid-range, you get good throttle response and tons of torque. The engine will rev a little over 7,000 RPM. It is so much quicker than the last generation base M2 and even the M2 competition. Wow. With the adaptive dampers in Sport, excellent body control while also soaking up all the bumps. In Sport Plus, I think it's just a little bit too firm for canyon driving. I will say though, with the active sound turned off, even though this sound is technically natural, it's too quiet. I can't hear the engine as much as I want. Now, even with the brakes set to Comfort, I don't like the feeling of this brake pedal. It's very touchy and inconsistent, difficult to modulate. BMW has come a long way since the late 2000s in terms of their manual shift feel. It's still a bit rubbery, it's still a bit vague, but relatively speaking, it's a lot more precise than the old BMW manuals. The clutch is still a little bit vague with a long pedal travel, but it's still, I would say, enjoyable to get this with a 6-speed. The 8-speed ZF Auto, though, is an excellent transmission, and no doubt quicker on track. But if you prefer to roll your own gears, at least BMW has taken some measures to improve the feel of their 6-speed manuals. One thing I've always been impressed by on the G87 compared to the last gen is the suspension. Of course, the old F87 base M2 didn't have adaptive dampers, and that suspension just felt not great for daily driving. And also, when you start pushing the car, it feels soft and kind of loose. This is on a totally different level. Excellent body control in all 3 modes, Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. But the car also just soaks up the bumps with so much more ease. And even though this car is so much heavier, 300 to 400 pounds heavier, it's also a lot more confidence inspiring in the corners. It does a good job hiding its mass at canyon speeds. A lot of that's due to the suspension, and I'm sure the electronic systems of this car are working overtime to keep this thing feeling as stable and planted as possible when you want it to be. That's not saying you can't turn this into a drift missile. You absolutely can in the right circumstances, and you can adjust the M traction control to give you more freedom to play with the limits of this car, which is something that was not offered in the prior generation. Chassis into Sport Plus now, and the brakes into Sport, basically everything in the most aggressive setting. Yeah, the throttle response is more sensitive now, a matter of personal preference on how much sensitivity you like in your throttle pedal. I really don't like this brake pedal feel though. When I go to heel toe, it's just not easy to modulate the stopping power. And the steering, very precise, but in my opinion, it's a little bit too quick, and there's not much feedback. I think all of the controls of this car, the steering, the throttle, the brakes, the manual's fine, but those 3 things, they feel a bit disconnected and digital. They don't give the driver a whole lot of feedback. I drove an E92 M3 this morning, and that car, compared to this, is brimming with feedback. But this car is so much faster. Really, I think this should be called an M3, and the G80 M3 should be called an M5. The performance level of this car now is so above what the M2 used to be, and even what the E90 M3 used to be. I just wish the car still retains some of that early 2000s era BMW character. While I would say they hands down have increased competence with this generation and the G80 M3, there's something a little bit lacking for me in terms of feedback and in terms of emotion. Even this S58 engine, extremely powerful, extremely effective and torquey, even relatively efficient, just doesn't give that high RPM howl, doesn't make the best sound. It seems to be all about the numbers now. The performance figures of this car are pretty outrageous, but the experience is not what BMW's M division used to be known for. They used to be known for giving you a good blend of that daily drivability and that raw, visceral driving experience. This is just throwing massive amounts of grip and power at you and giving you tons of refinement, but I can't help but feel that the driver is somewhat removed from the equation now. I'd love to drive a modified G87 M2. I'm also very curious to see how the competition and hopefully CS versions of this car compare once those are out. So big shout out to Aiden. Let me know what you think about the G87 BMW M2. For the money, let's call it sub $80,000. For a brand new car, are there better options out there if you want a front engine, rear wheel drive, daily drivable, sporty car? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.